Kevin had just beaten the school's martial arts instructor, Frank Carter, outside on the practice field, with Professor Murdoch and half the school watching. The match wasn't even close, and it was an embarrassing defeat for Carter. Several students who really liked Carter rushed towards Kevin. "How dare you treat our instructor like this?" one of them screamed. It was pretty impressive to everyone who was watching. They started to see that Kevin might not be so useless after all. Phoebe was also starting to see Kevin a little differently after this. "Will you admit you were wrong?" Kevin looked down at Carter and smirked. "I'll never give up." Carter stared at Kevin maliciously. "Listen to me, you..." "I simply asked if you were wrong." Frank Carter felt as if his internal organs were being flattened. But how could he give in to Kevin in front of almost all the students in the school? "Just say you were wrong and I'll let you go." But he kept clenching his teeth and didn't say a word. "Honey, please stop. If you push down any harder, Mr. Carter may not be able to survive." Lily quickly ran to Kevin to persuade him to show some mercy. "I asked you if you were wrong." Kevin didn't pay attention to Lily and applied a little more pressure. Almost everyone there heard a series of loud clicks that sounded like firecrackers. Carter opened his mouth and screamed in agony. "I give in. I admit I was wrong. Please stop," he cried out desperately. "Now that we've gotten that out of the way, why don't you apologize to my wife?" Kevin ordered him calmly. I'll apologize, but can you please let me do it from down here? I don't think I can stand up." Frank Carter pleaded so quietly you could barely hear him. Lily hurried over and tugged on Kevin's sleeve. "Forget about it, honey. I'm not that angry with him anymore. As long as he stops harassing me, that'll be fine." But Kevin was still pretty pissed at the guy. "Did you hear what my wife said, Carter?" Kevin sneered at the defeated man as he put his hand on Lily's shoulder. "Okay. I promise that I'll never bother Lily again." Even though Carter was trying to look compliant, you could see the venom in his eyes. Just as Kevin was about to reply, everyone heard a loud whooshing noise and a large shadow flew over them. "Is that a Bell 525? Kevin was startled for a moment as he admired the luxury helicopter that's nicknamed the Relentless. As the chopper descended, the crowd dispersed underneath it, clearing a space for it to land. A thin figure stepped out, gazing around at the enormous crowd. The man's eyes fell on Carter, who was barely recognizable in his current condition. "Who's responsible for this unauthorized gathering? Don't you know the college's rules and regulations?" He was quite old and his voice was a little hoarse. "Vice President Shepard, to what do we owe the pleasure?" Professor Murdoch stepped forward and approached him uneasily. She knew the elderly gentleman. Harley Shepard was the vice president of the Chicago branch of the School for the Healing Arts. He was also heavily involved in physical and martial development and had been an enforcer many years ago. "What are you doing here, Professor Murdoch?" Shepard said softly. "It seems to me that the school's faculty has been slacking off lately. You and Mr. Carter obviously can't control the students." "Vice President Shepard, you may have misunderstood." Professor Murdoch wanted to explain, but she didn't know how to do it. All of a sudden, Sherwin Blair stepped forward and spoke to Mr. Shepard. "Sir, I want to report to you that Kevin has been disrespectful. He beat his instructor for no reason at all and injured several students in the process." Mike also stepped up to denounce Kevin. "Vice President Shepard, as student leader, I request that you severely punish Kevin Williams. A terrible influence like him shouldn't be allowed to stay in this school." "Oh, really?" Shepard slightly turned his head to look at Kevin. "Are they talking about you?" Kevin had advanced enough in his training to recognize someone whose development was far superior to his own. His body shivered for a moment. "Yes, they are." Kevin, who had recovered from his surprise, answered plainly and directly. He thought that if the school's vice president only believed one side of the story and didn't try to look for the truth, then the school was doomed anyway, and it didn't matter if he got thrown out. "That's interesting. Shepard's eyes flashed a look of surprise. It's rare for someone to be so accomplished at such a young age. Don't worry, sir. I'll take care of this matter, Professor Murdoch reassured the vice president. Even though the professor had a very high rank in the Union, she still had to be very polite to Shepard. No, that won't be necessary. Mr. Carter has already been fined and placed on suspension for similar actions in the past, Shepard explained. I'll handle this. Yes, sir. How could Carter argue with him? He had to bite the bullet and accept his punishment. As for you, Kevin, come with me. Shepard turned toward the faculty office building and started to head there without giving any further explanation. Kevin! Lily was worried about what would happen to him. Don't be afraid, honey. I'll go and have a chat with the vice president. Kevin patted her shoulder lovingly. Just head back to class. Wait for me in the parking lot after school and we'll go shopping together. Good idea. Lily nodded enthusiastically. Professor Murdoch left with Kevin, and then the crowd broke up as the students left one after another. Vice President Shepard's office was on the 7th floor. When Kevin and Professor Murdoch arrived, he was sitting behind his desk holding a book. Professor Murdoch, please head back to your office. I'll let you know if I need anything from you. Shepard gestured politely toward the door. Vice President. She really wanted to say something to help Kevin. What's the matter? Are you afraid that I'll bully one of your students? Shepard joked as he gave her a disarming smile. Yes, sir, as you wish. Professor Murdoch wasn't in the mood to tangle with him. She took a long look at Kevin and quickly left the office. In an instant, the room was quiet. Kevin was looking at Harley Shepard and decided that there was nothing unusual about him. He didn't look any different than any ordinary elderly man. But Kevin knew very well that someone like Harley Shepard was a lot like his mentor, the Night King. You had no idea what they were capable of just by looking at them. That was the worst kind of opponent. Are you the same Kevin Williams who was thrown out of the New York City Williams family a few years ago for colluding with outsiders and stealing family funds? And the same one who's got a reputation as the good-for-nothing son-in-law of the Jones family in Chicago? Shepard said slowly. Did you bring me here just to insult me? Kevin's expression was very serious. He didn't know why Shepard had dredged up all those lies. Don't forget that the school investigated everyone's family background before admission. That was announced on the first day of classes. Having said that, Shepard suddenly got up and took a file from his desk and handed it to Kevin. But I recently did some investigation of my own and found out some interesting things about you. Kevin opened the folder and he was stunned by what he saw.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.